Many people have asked me about eye awareness and what is this outward lived inner meditation which is unbroken. It's really first, of course, about you knowing that our original state really is a playful state and that you could be dwelling here in heaven as this is the space between two children which is playing. And eye awareness really is having an empty centre and simply having matter as care around this. And I is as space is as the stellar universe is. And am is the body, which you could look and see all the matter, which is care in the universe. That is your body. And so could you have a framework for change as you move more towards eye awareness? That's what I thought might it be that we could talk a little bit about. Because it's about you learning how to be more integrated and associated and congruent. And integrated is where you've got pleasure and interest that cause whole brain patterning. And congruency is a parallel processedness, and associatedness is you having learned how to use direction to move toward what is is your outcome and have this within you. And so you're congruent, you're integrated and associated and congruent in life more. And how do you go about anything is really something, isn't it? And so the very first thing, of course, is that you could have a beautiful gamma wave that you're emitted and emitting. And this happens actually if you could remember the first moment or moments wherever it is that you greet people and you can open a door or you see a door being opened and people are greeting each other. And you can see that those have this beautiful feeling of acceleratedness of love inside. And wherever someone says you hold tight to the feet of this perfect master, this is really about the master of self and how you're keeping self company. So if you frame things, which really just is like framing means that you've put some meaningfulness by putting a frame of reference around something, it's possible for you to change the meaning of it by changing the construct that's within to be meaningful more, or putting it in another context which causes what you're looking at to be more meaningful. And as you in the super conscious state, you're applying quite a few things, of course, eye awareness and knowledge. And this causes all else in the vicinity to fall more into an alpha theta rhythm around. And that epsilon wave which we're talking about is really a wave which is evident where genius is being expressed. And once you're in this visiting frame, we'll call it, and you can say that each frame is concentrically moving inside every other frame, and the next frame that you're moving into is a resourceful frame, because that resourcefulness is really causing you to be more in a whole brain pattern state, and you're more flexible, and you want flexibility in the way that you go about doing things. To be able to have trust, which is the next frame in, you've really got to establish good trust, because as you go further in the frames, you're moving more into an outcome and you're learning how to have more of a well-formed outcome. And after this, you've got a frame which is about your capacity to be able to co-create with the parts. And once you've got this frame, you're going inside further to another frame, which is a challenge frame, because as everything is at least involving 78% of your nervous system, it's going to get the change passed on, because there's an all or nothing in an axon hillock of your nerve, which sums all excitatory and inhibitory axon potentials and it sums them up. And so if it doesn't make 78%, it won't have a large enough population of cells in the head to affect change. So you can see that you want to elicit a challenge where anyone is as a frame, and that challenge frame gives you a greater sense of acceleratedness to be there for yourself. And so you up the ante by giving it to someone to feel how that is for themselves, and you're challenging to make sure that you're getting the full dollar behind the change where you are. As you go through this little red book on eye awareness, you're learning how to apply this framework for behavioural change. So then you'll come to a frame which is an integration frame, and the integration frame is the 7th frame. So you've got one more frame because you've got 8 frames, and the integration frame allows you to sense that you've got your outcome. And while success is in excellence, you presuppose this, you do all via the use of presupposition skillfully in your communication, and you can feel the effect gained above so that you can be more in this eye-aware state. You could look more into this as you could learn about this. You could read about this more in this little red book. You can read, and sometimes you could have people read this because you're in a meditation as you're learning this, and this is the true yoga. So any other form is a secondary form to come to be more eye-aware, and yoga really means that you're being joined in yourself. And meditation really is the focus that you have in your direction in yourself. And so it's a direct practice that you're arriving more in an eye-aware state, which is really about returning and arriving as concepts, So after this, you're future pacing. So finally, you've got something which you've integrated, and you've used a backtrack frame during that integration frame to see that you've got your outcome. Once you've got your outcome there, you're future pacing things that you've gained as you read, as you learn, as you go through this material. You can feel this, which is I'm talking about, becoming more integrated inside where you are. And you can have done this integration frame by backtracking over what we've said, of course. Future pacing is this eye-aware state into a future moment requires you to have the learning, to have the ability to be able to induct an access state that's being triggered and anchored, and that state can have been chained as states together to come to be one state. So you have a state of eye awareness which you're looking into a future moment, and there's various accessing cues which you could see, could be a sense of what you see or feel or hear, and it causes you to recall this beautiful integrated state and able to apply this in a future moment as you look into a future moment, and you can see yourself where this is, and you can see things from your own self where you are that trigger this. So it starts to cause more sticky factor for you, and this is an example like what we're talking about right now is future pacing, which is the 8th frame, and that's where you've gone into a future moment and you could be looking back over how you've gained this successfully, and you can look and see how this eye-aware state has been allowing you to imprint new information, and this has been an ongoing meditation, and this is really the beautiful yoga practice. So all is open to you. You'll take in information in an auditory mode, and as long as this is put into a tonal band where you, the reader, with your own tonal band, this is your own familiar voice, and it's very state-specific to a tonal band, of course, which you use yourself as you read. And as you could put things within this tonal band, it's going more auditory information is going in. And anyway, just to recap now, you've got a frame for behavioural change, which includes a visiting frame, which we talked about, which is you being in uptime. And then, of course, you've got a resource frame in further from that, and that causes you to be more in a whole brain pattern state. And then trust and honour is a frame which you have because you have to have trust where you are to achieve some outcome, which is a further inward frame that you learn how to be well formed about. And then you're engaging a fifth frame, which is co-creative, where consensus building, decision making sort of more is a style in the way you're going about things. And then you've got this challenge frame that we were talking about a little bit, where there's a backtrack about what you've got, and in that moment you're causing someone to be challenged about what it is that you've got, to see that you've got the whole thing. You've got to at least have 78% of what you've, the nervous system behind any change for that to happen really well. And then you've got the integration backtrack frame, and then you've got a future pacing, like we were talking about, which is pacing this change and state into a future moment where it all becomes, over time more triggered by this pattern that you could start to feel being imprinted more about how you go about things anyway, where you have excellence. And this is called a leverage inductive process, which you could learn a little bit more about this technique in whole brain functioning manuals as this little red book.